16 heats, 2 semi-finals, and a buttload of utter mechanical destruction. And we're finally here. Robot Wars, the Grand Finals. Over the last few months, some of the most feared mechanical monsters have stormed through the war zone until we were left with only 4. And this will be one of our most destructive finals ever. But before we let the bots loose, just in case you missed the last few shows because your internet was down, or you apparently live in medieval Cardiff, you might want to quickly relive the road to Armageddon. 144 machines took part in the series for the title of Grand Champion. Machines in different shapes and sizes, old and new. Even machines we saw back in Series 1. The arena has never seen so much carnage and destruction before, not to this scale, and has never seen the level of shocks and upsets that we experienced in the war zone. One of the best series we've ever had. And before we wrap it all up, let's review the story so far. Heat 1 saw the return of our champion Sub-Zero showing off its power by flipping Crustacean out of the arena and then doing the same thing to Kronos. But the entire heat was stolen from them by the surprising newbies Barn, who had their entire body destroyed by Megavore but still managed to come out on top by putting them down the pit, and then pulled an absolute shocking upset by destroying the reigning champions and causing them to crash into the death or glory. They fought through it to make the heat final, where they managed to successfully get their revenge and throw Barn out of the arena, saving themselves from an early exit and becoming our first series semi-finalists. Heat 2 started with all levels of shocks in the opening fight. Dodge Me shocked the top of the 3rd seed Shockwave and saw to their own defeat as they couldn't right themselves, and then Shockwave ended up breaking down and seeing the newcomers' Wheel of Misfortune going through. But that would be the only victory they'd acquire in the heat, as 19 seed Complete Control pushed them down the pit, and then saw to the end of Blip, who had seemed a lot more impressive this series. The Death or Glory, however, was dominated by the spinning blade of Dodge Me, sent Blip flying out of the arena in quick style, and then smacked the backside of Wheel of Misfortune and flung them down the pit of oblivion, leaving just Safety Hazard to deal with the spinning bar. And it took very good pounding from it, but this was the final collision, and that sent Safety Hazard down towards the pit, and Dodge Me then decided to give them a little helping hand as they went through to the heat final, while also showing off their immense dominance, who then almost saw to the end of Complete Control in the heat final, but a poor driving error saw them driving too far over the pit and falling into it, resulting in Complete Control going through to the semi-finals. Heat 3 saw a lot of destruction with the return of the 5th seed Pika Destroy, who ripped into Big Nipper and left almost nothing left of them, while Conqueror 10 laid immobilized against the wall. We also saw Behemoth return to have a rematch with Cobalt, where Cobalt went up and over with no way of righting themselves. But then the lifting bucket seemed to stop working and couldn't deliver the finishing blow. They ended up abandoning that and decided to take out Atomic Candy by pushing them down the pit. The two then met at the Gold Rumble along with newcomers Identity Theft, with them reversing down the pit as Pika Destroy tore off Behemoth's bucket, and then proceeded to litter the arena with bits of him. The Death or Glory then saw Identity Theft demolish Big Nipper, as well as knock out the wheels of Behemoth, who got flung by the floor flipper, as they also knocked out and destroyed Tronic 2. The heat final, however, saw one upset evolve into another, as Identity Theft took out one of Pika Destroy's wheels, only for Identity Theft to drive one of their own over the pit before getting pushed down it. Identity Theft's victory stolen, and Pika Destroy were through to the semi-finals. Heat 4 saw the return of the Kiwis Endgame as the number 7 seed, but far more deadly than we've ever seen them before, as they not only destroyed Gothic infrastructure, but also did the same thing to Sword Blades, as well as caused the camera to what I can only describe as having either an epileptic fit or a stroke. But the reliability of the Shreemik caused them to crash early in the Gold Rumble as they got flipped by the 23rd seeded German machine Tsunami, who then took on Jade Emperor, where they were on the receiving end of the spinning drum, but then suddenly came to a halt in the middle of the floor. They weren't able to move anywhere and got counted out, and Tsunami went through to the heat final. But Endgame weren't going to let their run end there. They fought tooth and nail as Fulcrum threw Jade Emperor across the floor and then threw them up and over the wall, and then did the same thing to Sword Blades, who managed to pull themselves back into the arena. But Endgame finished them off and then went to do the same thing to Fulcrum, only for them to drive down the pit. But a call from the judges saw Fulcrum had no control and deemed them immobilized, which saw Endgame getting a rematch and a grudge match against Tsunami back from the grand finals of the First Wars. However, the weapon of Endgame didn't seem to be working, which was helpful for Tsunami as they flipped them onto their front, but just as they released the pit, suddenly drove straight down it, giving Endgame the win, and also a spot in the semi-finals. Heat 5 saw the return of the powerful newcomer of the last wars, now seeded number 9 Dan Tomkia, who were just as powerful as they were in the last wars, if not stronger. Quickly threw out the Steel Avenger, and then after flipping pressure up and over, did the same thing to them. And they pulled the same stunt at the Gold Rumble, first threw out 25th Seed's Tornado, and then flipped out the immobilized Punch-Arc, who they got seriously battered by Peace and Riot in the Death or Glory within seconds, and then battered out of the arena again with Tornado, then following suit. But the surprise of the Heat turned out to be Mortis, who had previously always fallen at the Bronze Rumble stage, as they managed to out-push Peace and Riot, and eventually managed to push them down the pit. The Heat final, however, saw what we expected, which was Dan Tomkia dominating them by flipping them over and over. But as one flip saw Mortis self-riding and getting a track over the pit, Dan Tomkia made a charge that ended up in disaster as they ended up driving themselves down the pit. And Mortis saw themselves through to their first ever series semi-finals. After their fight with Endgame in the Vengeance Last Wars, we weren't overly sure if we'd see 8 Seed Chaos 2 make it into the arena for Heat 6, but they did despite the damage. However, they weren't as flamboyant as we'd seen them in the past, as they watched Manhole, Maurice, and Touch Feely drive each other down the pit. But that would be the only victory they saw, as they then had their flipper ripped off once again by 24th Seed's High AF and left immobilized, as they also struggled to cut through the armor of Free Wave. And even after repairing the flipper a third time, it ended up being futile as they got stuck on an angle grinder and couldn't escape a snow dozer after immobilizing Free Wave, lost drive on one side and were counted out, leaving Manhole Maurice to go through to the Heat final, where they were then literally split in two. All hope of victory was removed as they lay battered and beaten. No shame in making the Heat final, but it was High AF going through to the semi-finals. The Bulldog Breed returned for Heat 7 as the 13th seeds, but it sadly wasn't their year this time. They flipped Mobius out of the arena, but then began getting bullied and pressurized by 101. They tried flipping them, but to no avail, and they had no way of finishing them. It ended up going to the judges, and the judges awarded it to 101 on aggression and control. They then tried redeeming themselves in the Silver Rumble as they threw Counter Revolution out of the arena, while Rat Attack seemed immobilized on one side. But they still managed to get underneath Bulldog Breed and cause serious damage to the underbelly, which resulted in Bulldog Breed losing all drive, and Rat Attack got very lucky. The Gold Rumble had a great fight with 101 taking on newcomers Skewer and 29th seeds M2, with 101 and M2 seeing the end of Skewer down the pit, and then 101 tried pushing M2, but it proved to not be effective as M2 got underneath them, flipped them once, and then out of the arena. But Golem and the Death of Glory showed that they wanted this victory more than the others as they threw Skewer out of the arena and then got a 2-in-1 flip against 101 and Rat Attack. They then got their rematch against M2 in the Heat final and were on top for most of the fight. But a small lapse in judgment saw them going up the flipper of M2, which they took advantage of and flipped them out of the arena. The machine that has never failed to reach a Heat final was finally through to their first series semi-final. Heat 8 witnessed 15th seeds Firestorm 2 perform their first ever out of the arena flip on the Dark Destroyer, and then watched Roller immobilize themselves after a strong charge with no way of getting back, and their roll cage lifting them down. 32 seeds Nexus also returned stronger as they threw out Pussycat with minimal trouble, and then managed to do the same thing to Series 1 veterans Mousetrap. The two seeds then clashed in the Gold Rumble alongside Midzy, where they slammed themselves too hard into the wall and got themselves stuck, but managed to get free and push Nexus down into the pit and then followed them into it. But the surprise of the night turned out to be the Heat finalists. Firestorm 2 took on Mousetrap in an almost even stalemate, but a poor driving error saw Firestorm 2 driving themselves into the pit of oblivion, and the surprise Mousetrap made it through to the semis. In Heat 9, the Barricade team returned as seed number 16 with their machine fully revamped in the bunker, where they caused whatever this was to happen to Storm 2, still no idea, before Terahertz self-righted themselves out of the arena courtesy of Storm 2, only for them to be then done in by their own weapon as Bunker pushed them over to the wall and they had no way of coming down. We also had the quickest preliminary battle we've ever had as 31st Siege TR3 flipped Exterminator out of the arena and then just as quickly did the same thing to Thermidor. Newcomer's Mutant Flare stunned us with its lethal flywheel as it not only immobilized Storm 2, but also destroyed the weapon and wheels of Thermidor, who then got beats on Storm 2's body with no way of getting off and going through. The Death or Glory then saw them immobilize the Kraken before then setting their sights on TR3, who then ceased moving as well. They then shattered the axe head of Terahertz and gave them a lot of trouble, but one push to get their wheel over the pit was all it took for Terahertz to snatch away victory from them and make it through to the heat final. They then had a fairly strong battle with Bunker with no true clear winner in sight, but a final power push from Bunker saw Terahertz flying out of the arena and saw Bunker through to the semi-finals. Heat 10 had a shocking twist in its first fight. 14th Siege Bigger Brother helped see the end to the newcomers Constrictor out of the arena courtesy of Spawn again, and then after being flipped, self-righted themselves out of the arena and allowing Spawn again to go through. King B also returned as King Buxton 20, who saw Singer drive up their front end over the wall and out of the arena, which was just fantastic, and then properly flipped up and out of the arena sent aggro, and in brilliant fashion too. King Buxton 20 and Spawn again then clashed in the Gold Rumble along with Thor, who tried pitting Spawn again in an impressive charge, but they fired their flipper at just the right moment and went over the pit instead, leaving Thor to end up falling down. The rest of the fight ended in a one-sided showdown as Spawn again kept flipping and tossing King Buxton 20 up and over, with them not really having a way to come back. But then both machines began slowing to a halt, leaving to the judges to give a decision, and they went with Spawn again. The heat final was then Spawn again taking on Stinger, who kept self-righting every time they got flipped, but a fatal driving error saw Stinger drive over the front of Spawn again and over the side wall out, and that fatal mistake saw Spawn again through to the semi-finals. In Heat 11, the Battle of the YouTubers Champions were back as Seeded 11, who threw Za out of the arena with no major issue. Same gonna be said for that fight with Citrus Punch, who kept rolling over the wedge and didn't seem all that affected until a good push from Peach and a flip saw Citrus Punch going over the wall and Peach into the Gold Rumble. We also got a shocking turn of events as Black and Blue watched the destruction of Major Damage courtesy of Jabberwocky before Black and Blue pushed away at them and down the pit while joining them. But the shocking turn of events happened when Major Damage showed that they still had life in them and that they weren't immobilized. Though probably wishing they were, as they were betrayed by Wambulance in a tag team against Peach as they were flipped into the pit release button and up and over, and then thrown out of the arena by Peach, leaving Wambulance all alone, which ended up being Peach's key to victory as they overturned Wambulance and then threw them down the pit. But the heat final proved to be a major test for Peach as Watchtower caused serious damage to the machine and even ripped off the front wedge. But the uncontrollability of full body spinners ended up saving them as Watchtower threw themselves down the pit, and Peach narrowly made it through to the semi-finals. Choking Hazard tried defending their 10th seeding in Heat 12 as they pushed and flipped away at Corrector and Aegis before pushing Aegis down the pit of oblivion just as Corrector seemed to lose power, and with no way of throwing them up into the air and out of the arena, they settled for having them join Aegis down the pit, and threw themselves down in the process. 26 seeds P1 tried to reclaim their former glory, but to no avail as Black Widow took out 2 of their wheels before breaking down, and then P1 lost power and came to a halt as the judge went trucking on through. But they didn't seem to last long as Choking Hazard rammed at their side and pushed them effortlessly down the pit before then focusing on Male Zuri, who no matter how many times they tried, they just couldn't get them out of the arena, but eventually got them at the right angle and hoisted them out to get themselves prepared for the next fight, which was mostly Corrector throwing themselves down the pit and getting themselves back out as Aegis threw the judge out of the arena while they laid motionless in the corner. But the heat final turned everything on its head. It seemed to be a very even and close fight until Aegis got the lifting arm of Choking Hazard stuck under them and couldn't free themselves. But the moment they did, the arm refused to work and Choking Hazard were counted out. They were out of it, and Aegis were through to the semi-finals. Shocking winners of the New Blood Championships last Wars, Destructotron returned in Heat 13, who got pushed around by newcomers Junkyard Boss as Pyramid drove themselves down the pit for some reason, and then skillful driving saw Junkyard Boss getting their two wheels over the pit with Destructotron then pushing them down it. But Pyramid didn't let up as they tore Voxic apart in the Bronze Rumble before finally setting their sights on returning Rotator, when their Ankh suddenly came flying off. But weirdly, that seemed to actually help Pyramid as their drive was more controlled as they pushed Rotator around a bit before finally dropping them down the pit, while 27th seed Vumitbird had a quick, easy Gold Rumble victory where they threw out Dietor, and then just as quickly did the same thing to Destructotron. The two then met in the Heat final and it was over in a trice. As soon as they collided, the Ankh came off once again, and Pyramid went flying out of the arena, leaving Vumitbird to go through to the semi-finals. We expected to see the same greatness of 6th seed Siege in Heat 14 like we did in the last Wars, but sadly that didn't happen. They got one flip which knocked down Castle Quackenberg before they themselves got taken out by Iron Ore via out of the arena, and it was the same story in the Silver Rumble. They took out an immobilized Emergency before their drive suddenly went and they couldn't move. They were counted out, and it was Slinky the Sea Monster who went through to the Death or Glory, where they ended up taking themselves out before Castle Quackenberg did the same thing to Iron Ore, who then had a very good tussle with Battleboard Super Heavyweight Champs Toro. But the Heat final didn't even last 10 seconds as Diamond Cutter in their new form destroyed them, leaving them on fire. And with the finishing of the pit, Castle Quackenberg fell, and Diamond Cutter went through to the semi-finals. Heat 15 saw the return of 4th Siege Razor, but not in as great fashion as we've seen before. They practically let Petunia and Pestilence take each other out, but then they encountered major issues as they were then up against the spinning flywheels of Hypnodisc and former champs 259, who suddenly threw themselves down the pit for no reason, as Hypnodisc began tearing into them before a big pings and razor down the pit, and into the Death of Glory, where they were then tossed out of the arena by newcomers Junkie. But the victory was stolen as Hedgepig then pushed 259 down the pit of Oblivion and out, and then did the same thing to them. They tried very hard to survive in the Heat final, but Hypnodisc didn't let up and tore their wheels off, leaving them immobilized. The pig was out, and Hypnodisc were through to the semi-finals. And in our last heat, all eyes ended up on the newcomers Hivemind as they completely immobilized Overkill and then managed to do the same thing to the runners-up of the last Wars Angry in a shocking upset. Hydra also barged in, taking out Force in fast style, and threw out Harvester the same way. The two then clashed after Hydra threw out Rosie the Riveter over the arena wall, but it didn't end well for the veteran machine as they ended up battered, beaten, bruised, and also out of the arena. The Heat final saw our first and only Heat final with just newcomers as Hivemind took on Hammerhead 2, who gave a good fight until their wheel got knocked off, and then Hivemind slammed and threw them out of the arena, taking that final spot in the series semi-finals. So the first fight of the semi-finals and already started with a major upset, with Endgame battering Sub-Zero and immobilizing them, and if that wasn't enough, they even threw them over the wall and out. Mousetrap ended up wishing they never went through, as they got literally torn apart by a high AF to the point where there was nothing left of them, really. Complete Control seemed on top in their fight with M2 at first, but a critical error turned the tables and M2 flipped them up and out of the arena and out of the competition. And a great destructive battle between Pika, Destroy, and Mortis, with Mortis, despite all the damage, kept trucking along and putting up a fight, before a critical kill shot knocked them out cold, and Pika Destroy then finished the job and took out the trash. We then had a brilliant battle as Endgame did what others had previously failed to do and kill High AF. They even took out the weapon which High AF got stuck on, and after being pushed into a corner, were just left there to be counted out, with Endgame snagging the first spot in the finals. Pika Destroy tried destroying M2, but didn't really do a whole lot to them, and ended up getting flipped over and over. But the fight then turned on its head as M2 drove into the pit, with Pika Destroy following afterwards. But they fell last, and they went through with Endgame. In Semi 2, Peach immediately took out one side of Spawn again, and with that, any chance of victory. And to add insult to injury, took out the bottom plate, setting something on side on fire, and then threw them over and out. Each's armor stood up extremely well to the flywheel of Hypnodisc, and with a good push got them over towards the arena wall and threw them up and over it. Bunker tried their best to take out Hive Mind, but the moment they got their wheels stuck over the edge was when they knew it was all over, and one final nudge from Hive Mind saw them down and out. Vumitfurt didn't struggle really against Diamond Cutter, took out the wheels and then committed serious health and safety concerns as they threw Diamond Cutter up into the air and nearly hit the control pod on their way out of the arena. Each had nothing to do once Peach took out their wheels, leaving them a sitting duck in an open target, and even after they fired their flippers to try and get away from the pit, Peach wasn't about to let that happen and pushed them right back down. And after a failed attempt by Hive Mind to get rid of Vumitfurt, the Dutch came in for the extraterrestrial machine and sent it back to its mothership. So, after 140 insane and destructive battles, we now have our 4 grand finalists. Endgame. Pika Destroy. Peach. And Vumitfurt. And while we'll be seeing our grand finalists very soon, I think it's right in saying that this has been one of the best series we've had so far. And I also think that in recognition of that, we have our special award nominations. Our first award is for the most original entry. We had so many interesting and unique designs enter the competition, but these were the 4 that stood out the most. Wheel of Misfortune with the gigantic spinning flywheel, which we actually never really got to see in action and caused more problems for them than it did for their opponents. But such a fantastic design, and definitely worthy of a spot. Big Hate Machine 3, a Walkerbot from Russia. First Walkerbot in Robot Wars, actually. Didn't win its fight, but to see a Walkerbot in Robot Wars regardless is just amazing, and we hope to see more going forward in the Series 4. Slinky, the Sea Monster, the only machine to end a Robot Wars running on just a single wheel. How it managed to make another Death of Glory, I will never know. But it is a brilliant machine, and it is one of the more original designs we've had. And finally, Junkie, a machine literally made out of junk that did manage to do very well in the competition, and even took out 4th Siege Razor. An impressive victory, and the design alone gives it a good chance. But not compared to the Russian entry, the Walkerbot takes it! Well done to Big Hate Machine 3! Next we have the Best Design Award, which goes to a machine that just looked so aesthetically pleasing to admire. Conqueror 10, design of a World War tank with a spinning turret, the aesthetic is amazing and definitely deserving of this award. Maozuri, inspired by the Doodle Beast creature Maozuri, and it just looks lovely. Genuinely. The team actually fought in the last 2 wars with Stampede. The new machine is just beautiful. Direwolf, which is just breathtaking, especially with the top head from the teeth to the eyes. A genuine sight to behold. And Advanced Mimic 2, designed like a treasure chest, ended with a similar design last wars actually, and it's still an amazing machine to look at. Really have to love this thing. Shame it didn't go far. But the judges have gone for Direwolf. Well done to them. Our next award is the Best Engineered Award, which goes to a machine with some of the best technical engineering work we have ever seen on Robot Wars. The first machine, Roller, which doesn't look all that technical at first glance, but take a look underneath the machine, a special designed flipper panel to help the machine free itself whenever it gets stuck. That's actually quite a useful tool to have. High AF with a spinning blade attached to a device that raises up and down, which you did see it do in the preliminary rounds. Actually managed to help the machine self-right. Maybe not the most effective way to self-right, but it's still a unique device. Mortis, all custom-built electronics down from the batteries to the speed controllers, and proved to be a lot more effective this time around. Even coated in silicon carbide to make the armor extra tough. I think at this point that's just showing off, don't you? And finally, Manholmer Race, an articulate machine and not something you often see in robot combat. Yes, the control of the machine may not exactly be the greatest, but that doesn't eliminate its effectiveness. It has proven to be capable of holding its own, and we also saw it beat both Hypnodisc and Razor in Battle of the YouTubers. But the judges have gone for Mortis with their custom-built electronics. Well done to Rob Knight & Co. Our next award, the Sportsmanship Award, going to a machine that mainly focused on entertaining the crowd, but also to a team that helped out in the pits. First, Castle Quackenberg. Very fun machine, I have to say. They even stated that they were just here to have fun, and they actually did very well in this series. For a gimmicky machine, it put up one hell of a fight. A second award nomination for High AF, and this is mainly based on an incident involving Chaos 2, who had suffered major damage in the last wars to endgame. They were supposed to be in the first fight, but weren't prepared in time. High AF offered to switch places with them and even helped them repair the machine and get it ready for each and every one of its fights, even the one where it absolutely wrecked it even more. Nice. Dietor, who came back new and improved and, as always, helped out everyone down in the pits, including Chaos 2. Great team, and always fun to have around. And finally, Killatron, who, while didn't win any of their fights, always provided helpful feedback and advice and thoughts before going into a battle. Great team, and we hope to see them back for the next wars. But the winner is High AF, and after the lengths they went to help Chaos 2, can't really fault the call. Our next award is the Best Newcomer. Which newcomer gave us the best performance of the lot? The first, Barn, who looked really stupid to be perfectly honest, and top heavy. But not only did they manage to reach the heat final, but they even battered and beat reigning champs Sub-Zero, completely immobilized them. And that was the biggest shock of the entire series. As was Hivemind, the only newcomer to make the semi-finals. The spinning bar caused serious damage to everyone it fought, and even sent 3 of its opponents out of the arena. The only newbies into the semis. They are a strong contender for this award. Wambulance, who stood up to not 1 but 2 full-body spinners and was still fully capable of continuing the fight. Such sturdy construction, and an impressive machine too. And finally, Hedgie Pig didn't exactly have a lot of faith in it going far, but it made the heat final before falling to Hypnodisc, but at row 2 it was impressive as it even beat Junkie in the Death or Glory, who slammed out Razor. They even pitted former champs 259. Quite a machine, I have to admit. But the winner is Barn for pulling off an incredible, shocking upset and nearly being responsible for our champs going home early. And finally, the Skull and Crossbones Award, which goes to a machine that didn't win any of its fights, but gave us a great performance despite it. Gothic Infrastructure, who ended up in the Bronze Rumble and also ended up out of the arena, but towards the later part of the fight managed to get themselves back over the barrier and back into the arena to fight. They still lost, but it was brilliant to see. Jabberwocky, who showed off their new flywheel weapon, which did a number on major damage's drive, and the flippers still seemed as strong as it was in the last wars. Just a shame they didn't improve the pushing power. Bulldog Breed, who started strong on both of their fights, but ended up in problems later down the line with them getting immobilized by Rat Attack in the Silver Rumble. They were seeded 13, and like the saying goes for that number, unlucky for some. And finally, Nightlight, a full-body spinner who seemed on top in both of its fights, but ended up going out of the arena twice because of its own weapon. Such a shame, but it showed us just how dangerous it could be when working right and in the center of the arena. And the judges share that sentiment and have given it to Nightlight, especially based on their fight with Wambulance. Thank you to all our Roboteers for an amazing series. But now it's time for the final showdown to get underway. Our 4 survivor machines have readied themselves for the destructive fights that are about to ensue, all in the name of being crowned our Robot Wars reigning champions. So let's head to the Battleboard and see the lineup. Just feel the tension in the air, especially since every machine in this grand final is armed with a spinning blade. Seed at number 5, Pika Destroy with the Thunderbolt spinning bar against seed number 27, Boomitford with the lethal spinning wheel. But the first fight of this grand finals is the endgame machine, seed number 7 with the lethal blade and powerful drive against the flipping wedge and spinning blade of the 12th seed Peach, Battle of the YouTubers reigning champions. Let the ultimate assault begin! Endgame Spinner! The Kiwis have done really well making the grand finals. The blade has torn and mangled everyone that's come into contact with it, and they have shown just how hungry they are to take home the trophy. And as one of the best that have made the grand finals, they'll definitely have their work cut out for them. Peach Spinner. Extremely lethal and dangerous, and living proof of the saying looks can be deceiving. The flipping wedge is a very useful tool, and the spinning blade is very deadly. They made the grand finals of the New Blood Championships, as well as the Battle of the YouTubers on the main channel. Don't underestimate this machine, whatever you do.
Roboteers, stand by.
7th seeds, endgame with the spinning blade. 2-time champion over on BattleBots. And Peach, our 12th seeds and Battle of the YouTubers champions with the flipping wedge and the spinning blade. Our first grand final battle.
3, 2, 1. Activate.
All spinners in the grand finals as well. I don't think we've ever had something like that before on Robot Wars. But this would be a case of speed and also a case of who can get underneath the opponent and do the more damage. And I think something's already happened to Peach. Well, at endgame stuff, right? Off comes a wheel. The camera's glitching again. For Peach's sake. Oh, that's important! Off comes the wedge! The wedge of Peach is gone! Look at this, the push! And bang, off it comes! The entire mechanism's gone! And with that weapon gone, that seriously compromises the effectiveness of Peach. Then again, having your wheels shredded to bits by the weapon of Endgame will do that as well. Peach in real trouble here. And now can come in to get revenge, and now flung up and over by Endgame, who are tearing them apart. And this is a major problem for Peach, because with that wedge gone and with the wheels gone as well, Peach has very little chance now of reaching the final showdown. It will be Endgame in the final battle unless something miraculous happens and Endgame ends up in trouble, but it won't be happening. Out the arena goes Peach, flung into the air by the weapon of Endgame, like here, balancing on the wall and over-tipping out the arena. Peach will have to settle for fighting for 3rd place, while Endgame will be getting ready for their final fight to take home the trophy. I expected an explosive opening battle, and I was not disappointed. Peach pulverized and obliterated and blasted out of the arena. Endgame goes through to the grand final. And who will be joining them? Will it be the 5th seed, Pika Destroy? Or will it be the Dutch reigning champions, Pulverizer's new machine, Boomitford? Pika Destroy Spinner. They crashed out in the second round of the semi-finals last Wars, This Wars, they've reached the grand finals, and very deservingly too. The spinning bar has proven to be the most dangerous in the entire series, and while the wheels are exposed, its speed makes it tricky to take its wheels out. Could they become our new reigning champion of Series 3? Voomit Spinner! Sub-Zero reached the grand finals in the Lost Wars at seed number 23, and Voomit seems to be mimicking its run from then, with them seeded number 27. The wedge is low and will slide underneath effortlessly for the big thick blade to rip and tear the opposition with little to no resistance. Could this machine completely mimic Sub-Zero's run from Lost Wars? Or will the title be snatched from them at the last second?
Robot ears, stand by.
Peach, the 5th seeds, with the Thunderbolt spinning bar, have done extremely well this series, as has Voomit, seed number 27, with their big flywheel blade, and have definitely done a lot better than they did in the first Wars with their previous entry, Pulverizer. A lot better.
3, 2, 1. Activate.
Have done extremely well. Both these machines really to get to the grand finals. Yeah, you meant to attack each other, not... Oh, something's come off of Voomit. Was that from an attack? I'm not too sure. That was Outpost Pika Destroy. That's it. That was the only attack they made. And it sent Pika Destroy out the arena. They are gone, meaning they'll be fighting Peach for 3rd place, and it's Voomit facing off against Endgame in the final showdown. I definitely wasn't expecting it to be over that quickly, but there you have it. Voomit goes through after one attack. One attack from Voomit, that's all it took. Pika Destroy eliminated like that. The final showdown is between 7th seeds Endgame and 27th seeds Voomit. But before we can get to that, we first have the 3rd place playoff. And what a playoff it's going to be between 12th seeds Peach and 5th seeds Pika Destroy.
Robot ears, stand by.
The 3rd place playoff, and what a 3rd place playoff this is going to be. Peach, Battle of the YouTubers, ringing champions, and seed number 12 with the lifting wedge and spinning blade. Pika Destroy, seed number 5 with the Thunderbolt spinning bar. And the reason I said this is interesting is because this isn't just for 3rd place. This is also a grudge match back from Battle of the YouTubers in the grand finals. That's where they fought before, and Pika Destroy gave Peach quite the run, but Peach also gave Pika Destroy problems. It was almost quite back and forth when they attacked. But this was the finishing blow. They knocked something out of the rear, and that disabled the drive. The weapon worked, yes, but the drive for Pika Destroy, well and truly gone. And Peach, there was nothing else for Peach to do. Pika Destroy, beaten, battered, immobilized, out.
3, 2, 1. Activate.
What lessons have Pika Destroy learned from that altercation, I wonder? Coming in, and already a piece of the wheel is gone. They're fine. I think Peach should be okay as well. Pika Destroy, but there's fire, and I think they've done the same thing they did to them in Battle of the YouTubers. There's fire coming, and I think they've immobilized them the same way they did back then, but in quicker style. Peach. Well, I guess they knew the weak spot. Pika Destroy, burning, on fire, and out. out! And Peach to hit the pit release button and declare it official! Pika Destroy end with 4th place! I don't know how they did that. But Pika Destroy, they get 4th place. Peach end up on the podium for bronze. Well done, Peach. I'd say it was a great fight, but it was over really before it even started. But a good victory nonetheless for Peach. They get 3rd place. They get the bronze. Commiserations to Pika Destroy, but they did such a great job at getting to the grand finals, as did Peach. Congratulations to both these machines. But now time for the main battle of this series. 7th seed Endgame, 27th seeds Vumitfurt. Which of these lethal spinning blades will be picking up the Series 3 trophy?
Roboteers, stand by.
This is it. The final showdown. Endgame. From New Zealand with a spinning blade and the drive. Vumitfurt from the Netherlands with the lethal blade of their own. This for Series 3 reigning champion.
3, 2, 1. Activate.
Both these machines have done extremely well getting here. Endgame have actually been in the grand finals before. In Series 1 came 3rd. And now fighting for that ultimate prize. Vumitfurt also fighting for that ultimate prize. And this is actually an international grand final, by the way. Both these machines, they're not from America, they're not from the UK. One is from the Netherlands, the other is from New Zealand. And both of them are just spinning around each other. Who is more on top, I wonder? I cannot really tell. Which is slightly problematic. Is Endgame pushing Vumitfurt? Is Vumitfurt backing up? It's Endgame releasing the pit. Endgame trying to get underneath Vumitfurt's front. I don't think they can. Trying to find another way to get around the side of Vumitfurt and knock them out. But it's tricky. Both these machines are actually struggling getting underneath. They're both spinners, so you'd expect a lot more coin. Oh! Endgame! No! Endgame's crashed out! And now Vumitfurt's done the same thing. But this is where it's over. Over the edge. And the weapon carried them down into the pit. Out goes Endgame. Vumitfurt, our new reigning champions. After all that destructive madness, we have a new reigning champion. From 27th seeds to champions, completing a run similar to Sub-Zero in the Last Wars. Well done to Vumitfurt as they take home the trophy. And we look forward to seeing them defend their title in the next wars. Well, launch the fireworks, cue the applause. We found a new champion on Robot Wars. Bye-bye.